So with a bit of luck, we're going to be playing Enforcer. With a bit of luck, I don't know if it's going to work on the SD to IEC at the moment. Right, that's usually a good sign, so we want to disable the turbo loader. Trainers actually. I'm just going to say yes to everything because I don't even know if this is going to work. Oh, see the ending first. No. Oh, damn it. I actually wanted that one. Okay. They do look like the kind of stripy lines, broken stripy lines that indicate successful loading. So this C64 game for shoot 'em ups, it's technically probably the best. Joystick port 2 of course. So it is a multi-load game, so if it didn't work with the SD to IEC, then you're a bit stuffed really. I don't even know if it came out on tape. 1992 is really late for the C64. 1992 is when I bought the 25 MHz 486 PC. The cheapest one money could buy with a crap 14-inch SVGA monitor. But I needed that for my university course. So we might have to read what the trainer options do now that we know it actually works. But, you know, when you have all the weapons, you are testing, you know, if there's any sprite glitching. Now, funnily enough, the second most impressive horizontally scrolling shoot 'em up on the C64 could be Scorpius, which was a budget game on the C64 actually. And this game proves how shit Nemesis turned out on the C64. And I do remember at the time people saying that Konami done such a terrible job with Jailbreak and Nemesis on the home computers that they would be going back to Ocean to sort out the conversions and basically license it to them rather than doing it in-house. There's no point trying to get more money via royalties if your game is shit. I mean, Nemesis, depending whether you love the arcade game or you just think it's an alright shoot 'em up at the time when it came out on the C64. Yeah, I mean, I'm talking in the arcade version. You're either going to rate it at 50% or 40%, like me. I suppose the music's alright, but it's not really all there. Now, there is a demo of Enforcer 2, which is even more technically impressive than this, but I don't believe that ever got finished. So, but this game looks great for a C64 obviously, not for a 1992 arcade motherboard. And plays absolutely fine there, and it's got less slowdown than pretty much most of the scrolling shoot 'em ups on the SNES. Can you believe it? If you don't believe me, just go and play Super R-Type. It slows down as much as the Amiga conversion, pretty much, possibly more. Although the Amiga version is not 256 colours. I realise that, but that's not the point. when you're playing a shoot 'em up, you don't really want that kind of like, I don't know, slow, jerky, lethargic. Nah. It's like listening to classical music whilst trying to drive really fast on the street circuit. Nah, for most people that doesn't really work. So now we actually do have some parallax scrolling. I mean, any game that does parallax overlay scrolling on just background graphics that you can't even crash into, yeah, they're basically saying to you, yeah, look, I know how to code the C64, I'll show you, look, mate. You want more parallax? Here we go. This really isn't the way to play this game though. In my defence, I didn't actually know if it was going to work, so there is that. So yeah, this is a bit like, you know, the parallax layer in Salamander, those blue squares. Yeah, graphics are really nice actually. You get sound effects and you get music. I'm just trying to think if the drums in the music there are samples or not. So I mean, people talk about catechies. I think it was Catechist, the one that Rainbow Arts did that was suspiciously like R-Type. I mean, it is sort of like an arcade game, like a mid-80s, you know, Konami etc. style shoot 'em up. It's got less slowdown than Salamander in the arcade, I'll give it that. It's got no slowdown at all at any point. It just happens to be in like, you know, the Big 2 graphics specification. Now pushing it quite hard, and you know, the SID sound specification. So it does look and sound like a C64 game, but it certainly isn't programmed like most shoot 'em ups. It really is. You know, it is. There's no reason why this game wouldn't have run on a 1982 Commodore 64 in January. Because it doesn't do that weird scrolling that Mayhem in Monsterland does. Hey, these graphics are great. It's just a really nice game. Now obviously I'm playing it with the trainers. I guess I just want to see the graphics now, because I just don't have the time for every single game I want to play to actually play it properly to see the graphics in the next level, which was a big incentive back then. Not so much for Manic Miner because it shows you all the levels, but you know, if you're playing Scramble or Hunchback, you want to see the next screen. In the case of Hunchback the arcade, you want to see what the rope section is like. Now famously, I played the Donkey Kong Hardware bootleg version of Hunchback in the local fish and chips takeaway back then. Because that's the only version that has the booming crashing noise when you're on the rope level, which the other version don't have. The original version doesn't have that. So I always wondered why there was no booming noise on the C64, because it sounded really great, I remember. It was very atmospheric for little shit version of Mad Commodore. I guess if this game had come out in the mid to late 80s, you know, people who paid for the license for things like R-Type, etc., they would have objected. They would have tried to get it taken off the shelves. But because it's 1992, I don't think people really cared. That's the thing. I mean, 1992, most big software houses were not producing games for the C64. There is not a single glitch anywhere. That's the impressive thing going on here. I think we have to shoot the anus of the robot spider. So, you know, you could have even more things on the screen if you're going to go the NES route of, a bit of flicker's alright. Nintendo seal of quality, my arse. Putting the cup down gently there, because it really does bugger up the camera. So, I mean, this is a game where you're not sitting there making excuses for it. You know, like I famously say, well, why is the sky bloody turquoise? Well, I know why it's turquoise, because in multicolour character mode, which this clearly is using, I reckon. Although, I'm not 100%, but I think it is, because the way the parallax is done. And look how much stuff is just going on. I mean, R-Type on the Master System is great, but it does flicker a fair bit. They're doing sprite interlacing, where, you know, they only redraw sprites every other frame and they alternate. I think that's what's happening, but there is some sprite flicker going on. And this has none. And it has parallax scrolling. And like I say, this isn't the only game like that. I mean, Scorpius is a two-player simultaneous game, which was a holy grail for people who had friends and loved shoot 'em ups. And Xenon 2 hasn't got two-player simultaneous gameplay. It really is an overrated game. So yeah, that's my point. You're not standing there making you know, excuses based on the technical specs of the VIC-2 chip. You know, like, oh, why is it this colour? And oh, why is there a bit of a flicker there between the top half and the bottom half of the sprite? No. This is a very, very well programmed and very well tested gameplay testing, I mean, game. There doesn't seem to be any bugs, and it works with the SD to IC, bloody brilliant. Now it's not just the SD to IC that these games would work on, they would also work with the non-Commodore branded disk drives you could get for the C64. There was the accelerator or the oceanic drive. They were cheaper. They were about 100 quid cheaper than the 280 quid Commodore 1541. But there was games that wouldn't work on it for the same reason that those games that don't work on the SD to IEC need you to disable the fast loader. So yeah, it may be an extremely difficult game. Well, this is like Scramble really. It's a lot like Scramble. So even though the VIC-2 and the SID chip were finished in 1981, don't you listen to Wikipedia, I've read it many times. by the people who actually design the chips themselves being interviewed in magazines. The Victor and the Sid chip were a separate project where Jack Trammell was, Jesus Christ, I know you can shoot them, but that would be quite iffy to actually do. You see, I would have lost a life there. Because the Victor and the Sid chip were going to be part of the arcade motherboard that Commodore were going to sell. Now, sort of like the MSX of, you know, arcade machines, an 8-bit motherboard that he would sell to different companies who wanted to do arcade games. But anyway, they were finished in 1981, I think winter or late autumn 1981. Oh, extra life for my infinite lives. Can you have infinite plus one? Nah man, infinity plus one. Yeah, that's what we used to say as kids. And then some clever bastard like me would come along and say infinity to the power of infinity an infinite number of times. And then your mate would say plus one. Yeah, it's a bit weird actually. But, hey, computers were still new then. This is actually a really good game. It may be difficult, you know, but then there's a lot of shoot 'em ups people love. It's a horizontally scrolling, bullet hell, enemy hell, slickly coded Commodore 64 shoot 'em up. And like I was saying, the Victor and Sid chip were going to be on the 1981 Commodore motherboard. Jack Trammell decided not to go into the arcade business in that way, and that's why the C64 was finished in January 1982, because after those chips were finished it was like, well, we'll just put them in a computer. Let's obsolete the VIC-20 before anyone else does, which was the first 8-bit computer to sell 1 million units in just 1.5 years. The Apple II had been out for about 4 or 5 years. That didn't sell 1 million units worldwide. Or the Texas Instruments TI-99 or the TRS-80. This actually looks really good, this bit. I like the green bits on the background, very Vulcan Venture. The bubbles look great. There's no sprite flicker at all, there's no slowdown at all. The C64, if it is breaking a sweat to actually do these things, which I suspect it is, it's certainly not telling you. It's a bit like Ayrton Senna. When you watch Ayrton Senna in that crappy Lotus in 1986 on the old Grand Prix, you have no idea what he's having to do to get that car to do those things and to like get those you know, finishes compared to the much superior car. And it's the same thing here. The programmer of this game is the Ayrton Senna of Commodore 64 shoot 'em up programmers, I have to say. It's a brilliant game. It's absolutely, this is console quality, and even if it was only on disc, most C64 disc games were 15 quid maximum. I don't remember any game being more than that, not even in 1984. And it looks great. You've got parallax, you've got loads of stuff going on, a tiny bit of sprite flicker there on the massive bubble. I mean, come on, the C64, whatever you do, can only have 8 24 pixel wide sprites per scan line. There's no way around that. So if you shoot more of these, I guess it would flicker less. Yes. So it's really your rubbishness at the game that's causing sprite flicker. And NES doing this, it can do it, of course it can. You have more sprites on the NES, they are smaller. One C64 sprite is about 3 times the, no, 1.5 times the width. No, actually I think NES sprites are technically 8 by 16 pixels. So it's three of those and another quite a few more character blocks. So about 4 NES sprites equals 1 C64 sprite. But because you can have separate sprites, you could do bullets with the sprites. Now on the C64 some games do the bullets with character graphics, because it's quite easy to do on the C64. It's easier than most consoles. Background tile graphics are a bit awkward to use on most 8-bit consoles. It's really all about the sprites. So when you hit the sprite limit, you haven't got much to fall back on. But if anyone ever told you that the C64 was shit, then congratulations, you've been tarred with the brush of the Patreon pricks. That is an arcade quality shoot 'em up, just happens to be in a resolution of 160 by 200. Although the screen scrolls at a resolution of 320 pixels across. Yeah. Manfred Trant, of course. It's a brilliant game. Absolutely fantastic. 1991. I've always said the Mega Drive is what the 16-bit update of the C64 would have been like. It does have weird colour restrictions, but the sprites are really powerful, the scrolling is really powerful, it's really easy to use the background graphics if you do run out of sprites. I'm not going to get into the argument of Mega Drive sound chip versus the C64, I'm just not going to. But neither of them is designed to play sample-based music, so there is that. The SNES basically is more like the Amiga sound chip than the C64. Gauntlet 4 soundtrack on the Mega Drive is probably my favourite, because it gives you an idea of what the chip can do, rather than the rubbish sounds of late 80s arcade machines, which is what most people think. Just needs a very talented coder to come along. So yeah, well, you can't enjoy the great music because this is taking up precious memory on the SD card on the camera.